So guys, we are back with another This Week in Destiny breakdown video. We have a lot to go over in this one, so we're going to jump straight into it. But before we do, as always, if you're going to enjoy or find the video helpful, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We're getting super close to 1,000 subscribers, so any support there would be greatly appreciated. With all that being said though, let's just jump straight into all of the information in this week's TWID. Obviously got the Mass Effect collaboration, which is live in the game now. You can go and buy all the stuff you want from there in the Eververse store, as well as claim your free bundle as well from your other store. Let's jump into the big stuff that is the March 5th update, update 7.3.5. We have PVE changes, PvP changes, a whole lot of stuff, so let's just jump straight into it. First off, ability sandbox. First things they want to cover here is a reduction in uptime for Threaded Spectre, a few changes to Threadlings to make them easier to deal with in Crucible, a fix for the restoration timer extension issue with a few corresponding changes to relevant solar fragments, and a small number of ability buffs that were pulling forward from our balance paths in the final shape. First up here we have Ensnaring Slam, reduced class ability regeneration penalty duration by 50% in PvE activities. Threaded Spectre now applies the same class ability regeneration penalty used by Ensnaring Slam when the player creates a Threaded Spectre, and increases Threaded Spectre detonation damage by 25%. Next up, Threadlings increased aim assist shape size from 0.41 meters to 0.5. This makes aim assist more effective against them, making them easier to shoot. Reduced base damage versus enemy players from 40 to 35. Damage with Thread of Evolution equipped reduced versus enemy players from 45 to 38.5. Fixed an issue where groups of Threadlings were not reliably chain detonating when one was destroyed, and fixed an issue where Threadlings sometimes did not play their non-damaging deconstruction performance when destroyed by enemy fire, resulting in them appearing to blip out of existence. Next up, Arcane Needle increased aim assist angle, the size of the cone that the aim assist system uses to bend the projectile's initial direction, by 50%. Increased aim assist fall off distance, the distance at which aim assist begins to decay, from 30 to 45 meters. Increased tracking angular velocity, how quickly the projectile can bend towards its target, by 5%. Increased the length of the projectile's tracking shape, the shape in front of the projectile that it uses to find targets, and fixed an issue where uncharged melees while Arcane Needle is equipped resulted in players appearing to freeze in a melee pose. Next up here, Restoration and Radiant updates. So for Restoration and Radiant, fixed an issue where the maximum duration of Restoration and Radiant buffs were being incorrectly stored, resulting in their buff timers resetting to their initial duration instead of their maximum when the buff was reapplied. This also resolves smaller issues with shorter restoration sources like Sunspot and Soul Invictus Aspect. We also go over here some changes to two solar aspects, these being Ember of Mercy and Ember of Imperium. So Ember of Mercy now extends your current restoration duration by 2 seconds when a fire sprite is collected. If you don't already have a restoration active, collecting a fire sprite grants restoration with a 2-second duration. This restoration extension is increased to 3 seconds while Ember of Solace is equipped. And now Ember of Imperium increased the maximum duration extension from 12 to 15 seconds. Reworked the duration extension granted with each solar defeat. Previously, it was granted a 4-second duration extension regardless of the type of enemy defeated. Now the duration extension varies based on the strength of the target defeated. Defeating an elite or weaker combatant will result in less time added than in the game currently, but defeating a champion or stronger combatant results in greater extension. Surprisingly, we also have some solar ability buffs here. So Consecration increased the travel distance of the initial ground follow, a projectile that travels along a surface like thermite grenades, wave, or the cold snap grenade seeker, from 18 to 20 meters. Increased the height of the slam ground follow detonation by about 1 meter. Increased travel distance of the slam ground follow from 16 to 20 meters. And increased travel speed of slam ground follow, including Pyrogale Gauntlet's enhanced version, from 16 to 24 meters per second. We've also done some changes to Gunpowder Gamble to reduce the maximum self-damage from 144 to 80. That's all the ability updates in patch 7.3.5 coming on March 5th, but now we go into the weapons sandbox portion. Now there are a lot of updates here, so please do bear with me as we go through all of them. First up, heavy burst hand cannons. Corrected an issue that was causing heavy burst hand cannons to have 25% less aim assist than other hand cannons when hip firing or airborne on mouse and keyboard. Bows reduce the auto-aim fall-off distance start and end by 15%. Aim assist will now be less effective at long range, and reduce the maximum auto-aim cone size by 5%. Auto rifles added the 12th missing perk target lock to Breakneck's second trait column. Lightweight scout rifles are getting a 5% increase to base damage. Sniper rifles reduce the auto-aim cone size by 10%. Rocket launchers precision frame increased reserve ammo by 2, reduced damage penalty from 10 to 5%. High impact frame increased reserve ammo by 2, now deals more detonation damage and less impact damage for roughly the same total. This should make them more effective versus groups or when splash damage on a target for near miss. The above change also affects Deathbringer, Galahorn, and Truth. Next up here, heavy grenade launchers increased reserve ammo by a minimum of 6 rounds, maximum of 10 rounds depending on the grenade launcher. Reduced spike grenades impact damage buff from 50% to 12.5. With the below changes, this reduces the total spike grenades damage buff from around 8 to 3%, making them less mandatory. Increased direct hit impact damage by 10% combined with the above change. This now brings non-spike grenade launchers almost up to the level of spike grenade launchers, and very slightly reduces damage output with a spike grenade launcher, and increased detonation damage by 5% in PvP. This is offset by a reduction to detonation damage for no overall change. Wave frame heavy grenade launchers increased damage by 20% and increased wave width by 40%. Caster swords reduced heavy attack energy cost from 5 to 4 and increased heavy attack damage by 16%. Exolic's Vigilance Wing now has a deterministic recoil pattern. Vex Mythoclast increased ADS damage fall scalar from 1.5x to 1.7x. Wishender True Sight now deactivates if you leave ADS or hold it for longer than 3 seconds. To reactivate, you must fully redraw the bow. That's a big nerf. Edge of Action increased its damage resistance in PvE against all combatants except bosses to 85% and increased its damage resistance against bosses to 15%. Manticore players must now be airborne for 0.5 seconds and deal damage with the weapon to activate the perk. This prevents accidental activation while running downstairs or doing small jumps. We gave it special reload to quickly disengage anti-grav thrusters. Dropping weapons will continue to disengage as well. Haraba also receives this special reload animation. While anti-grav thrusters are engaged, combatants will be less accurate while targeting the player, similar to the way Always On Time Sparrow works. And with the Catalyst, final blows and sustained damage with Manticore while airborne grant a void overshield and return ammo to the magazine. Exteris increased impact damage against PvE enemies by 50%. Detonation damage is unaffected, so the total damage increase works at about 20%, and they've increased the maximum rate of fire by 17%. Moving on to perks now, we have Heal Clip now grants Cure ×2 to the player while still granting Cure ×1 to nearby allies. Trench Barrel can now be activated by dealing damage with a ranged melee. Barrel Constructor, once activated, it no longer deactivates upon firing a shot. It now lasts 7.5 seconds, and it buffs all shots fired during that time. Enhanced Barrel Constructor lasts for 8.5 seconds. Loose Change, applying a subclass 3.0 debuff now grants 20 aim assist and 20% reduced ADS movement speed penalty in addition to the existing plus 50 reload stat. Applying another debuff now refreshes the duration too. Dual Loader removed the reload speed penalty, changed the wording of the perk description to make it clearer that it increases the number of shots reloaded, so we can now apply it to other weapon types without confusion in the future. Text Balanced Stock now grants plus 20 range and a plus 1.5 degree hipfire precision cone angle in addition to its other effects, making it easier to land follow-up crits while hipfire. Hake Breach Armaments Deconstruct And Sundering now works against Void Soul, Strand Clones, Cabal Projection Shields, and Briggs. Hake Breach Armaments damage bonus versus Stasis Crystals reduced from 85% to 60% to match other constructs. Sundering can now trigger on Shield Break in addition to final blows on vehicles and constructs. We added a small reload speed scaler while reducing the charge rate benefit to account for the higher uptime. Hatchling activation requirements are no longer locked to the archetype in terms of precision or non-precision kills. Instead, the perk will trigger with either a precision kill or 3 non-precision kills. Target lock now activates later in the magazine for SMGs at 20% instead of 12.5, so the damage buff will swing primary weapon gunfights less often. Envious Assassin, each activation is now capped at 100% of the magazine instead of 150, and the maximum overflow is now 3 times the magazine instead of 4 times. Bait and Switch, reduced damage bonus from 35 to 30%. 1-2 Punch now correctly deactivates after dealing damage with a powered melee. Deconstruct updated the perk's description to correctly state that it pulls ammo from thin air and not reserves, and fixed a bug preventing the perk from triggering when shooting an enemy Titan barricade. Mods. Damage bonus against mini-bosses should have been part of boss spec and not major spec. We've updated these mods to correct that. And then they talk about the future, where they've pulled a lot of balance changes from the final shape and Destiny 2 into the light into update version 7.3.5, but we'll still have a number of small but exciting changes shipping into the light, touching content many players haven't thought about in several years. In the final shape, we're rebalancing many weapon types in PVE, buffing underperforming weapons and leaving the most high performers untouched. Since we're looking at PVE weapons tuning anyway, over the course of the year of the final shape, we'll be looking at weapon mods that feel mandatory, and we intend to make some changes that will increase the player choice, particularly in PvE. We're also making substantial changes to several of the least used exotic weapons. We see a lot of requests for these. See if you can guess which exotics we touched, and adjusting some perks, including a long requested change to Chill Clip, making it more viable to use on slower firing weapons. That is the huge breakdown of the PvE side of stuff, but now we go into huge changes for the major Crucible sandbox. So I hope you guys are still strapped in and interested, because there is a whole load more changes to go through here. Now if you want to, you can read all of the in-depth details of these PvP changes right here, but they do give bullet points of just the overall changes that they're making in this update, so I'm just going to be covering those. First up, we have player health will be increased by 30 HP in base Crucible, so players have 100 health up from 70, and 116 to 130 shield depending on the player's resistance values. Ability cooldowns, melee, grenade, and class ability cooldowns have a 15% penalty applied to them in Crucible only. Super cooldowns now have a 20% penalty applied to them in Crucible only. Ability damage. Supers increase base damage by 31%. Melees increase base damage by 16%. And grenades increased arc flux damage grenade by 16%. Primary weapon archetypes. Pulse rifles, auto rifles, sidearms, and scouts increased critical hit damage by 14%. Hand cannons increased critical hit damage by 10%, reduced body shot damage by 5%, and reduced flinch dealt to players by projectile impact by 12.5%, and by explosive payload by 10%. Submachine guns increased critical hit damage by 12.5% and reduced body shot damage by 3%. Bows reduced base damage by 15%. Special ammo acquisition. So, after a lengthy test period in Crucible Labs, they are adding the special ammo meter system into the wider Crucible. So you're going to have to be earning your special ammo now instead of just getting it off the rip inside of the game. So to break that down further, you'll start every game, all game types including round-based modes like Domination, with 2 kills worth of special ammo for your chosen weapon. Instead of 2 kills worth of special ammo being granted every time you respawn, you will earn more ammo by filling up a special ammo meter with points given for getting kills, assists, or completing objectives. Getting 100 points grants you 2 kills worth of special ammo for your chosen weapon. So let's go over the points values here. Base point values are 23 points per kill, 10 points per assist and death, 14 points per zone control capture, and 8 points per heavy ammo pull. For elimination and domination point values, you have 38 points per kill, 16 points per assist/deaths, and 10 points per heavy ammo pull. 3v3 respawn modes like survival, 3v3 clash, and countdown rush. 26 points per kill, 12 points per assist, and 11 points per death. Rumble, you'll get 30 points per kill. Countdown, charge armed, you'll get 20 points. Charge defused, you'll get 40 points. Charge detonated, you'll get 70 points. Now for general notes, because you probably have a lot of questions, kills from special ammo weapons and heavy ammo weapons do not grant any points towards special ammo progress. Jumping off the map will subtract points progress from the special ammo meter. Ammo is not dropped on death, and you will not lose the special ammo you have earned when you are defeated or are revived. Earned special ammo will carry over between rounds. Swapping from double primary weapon to a special ammo weapon will reset your special ammo meter progress. Going into special weapon archetypes now, trace rifles, shotguns, and fusion rifles are getting a base damage increase by 20%. Glaives are having their projectile damage increased by 20% and melee damage increased by 16%. And heavy weapon archetypes, grenade launchers are getting reduced detonation damage by 5%, and machine guns are getting an increase in base damage by 20%. Now, moving on to some exotic changes here. Finally, we have Fighting Lion, decreased damage versus players in Crucible by 20%. Devil's Ruin, decreased charge beam damage against players by 15%. Crimson, reduced flinch dealt to players by projectile impact by 17.5%. Forerunner, increased damage versus players in Crucible by 20%. Symmetry, increased revolution damage versus players in the Crucible by 16%. That is all the PvP changes, and to quickly sum up the rest of this TWID, because this has been a very long video, the Lunar New Year emblem code is there on screen, and there is a bundle you can get from the Eververse store. Dead Cliffs is the Trials map for this week, and there is a Destiny 2 Humble bundle where you can get all of the Destiny content currently available in the game for around $40. So if you're missing out on any content or just want to get everything for a lot cheaper than you normally would, go and collect that bundle right there. That is everything for this video. Sorry for it being an absolutely long one, but this was a huge TWID, and I hope that I've been able to break all the information down here for you in the simplest form as possible. If I did and you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. That is it from me today, so I'll catch you guys in the next one.